Welcome to the general overview of the Azure Management Portal. We'll be going over some of the things that you can manage Azure MFA with. Now, the Azure Management Portal is different than the MFA Management Portal. As Mike showed you in our last module, the Azure Portal is where you access the MFA Management Portal. So with that, we're going to go ahead and go over what we're going to be doing in today's module. And for that, we're going to go through some of the settings that you can set in the Management Portal.
We'll also go over caching in the Management Portal.
You can customize voice greetings, and we'll go over how to do that.
How to run reports and do other reporting.
And also for what will be important in the next module is how to download the MFA server.
And with downloading, how to generate activation credentials for your server.
And we also have a contextual help file that I'll show you because you may have further questions that we don't cover today. All right, and now we'll go ahead and give you a demo on how to use the Management Portal. And cut. Okay, and this is the main screen of the MFA Management Portal that you access through the Azure Management Portal. And as you can see, it gives you your account ID and what you named the MFA provider. There's several functions you could perform here, as you see on the left-hand side. You can block and unblock users. This is also a function that can be handled by the user portal, which we'll go over in a different course. What you can do is you can, if you have a user you don't want accessing your system that you're securing with MFA, you can block them here, or if you have a user in this list, you can go ahead and unblock them. You can issue a one-time bypass. Again, these two functions are something that is handled generally by the user portal, but you can generate a one-time bypass here if a user loses their phone or for any other reason can't use general MFA. Another thing that you can do here is these are backend settings. So what you can do here is you can set custom caller ID. So if you wanted to not use this number that's by default, and you wanted to, say, put your help desk phone number, you could do that. And that way, when it calls your users, it'll show the custom caller ID.
Keep in mind that this feature is only limited to U.S. phone numbers, as we cannot guarantee international phone numbers will be displayed properly.
Yeah, thanks. And also, if you're doing the two-way text messaging, it defaults to timeout at 60 seconds, but you can extend that. For one-time bypass, as you can see, it defaults to 10 minutes, but you can change that as well. Now, you can allow users to report fraud. So if they're getting a phone call and they're not expecting to, this may indicate that their username and password has been compromised. And if they report fraud, as you can see, by default, it will block that user. And for PIN mode, if you get the phone call and put your PIN in, you can set how many tries they get before it will fail. Now, next thing you can do is customize voice messages. So for that, you would record your message, and by default, it says Microsoft Authenticator Service. But what if you want it to say something just customized for your company? You can say, go to new voice message and upload a sound file. So you could have it say, this is my company calling. And that way, when your users get the call, they know that it is your company calling for MFA. One thing I'll point out here is in the last section where I pointed out you could set fraud, the standard greeting when you don't have fraud enabled is greeting standard. But if you have fraud enabled and you wanted to customize your greeting, you would select fraud greeting standard. Now, to upload audio files for it, it's very straightforward. Once you have your audio recorded in a WAV or MP3 format, simply upload sound file, browse to it, and give it a description. It will then show in this sound list, and you would be able to select it from this dropdown. Another thing that we offer is caching. This can be useful if you're securing Radius, which is an impatient protocol. So it expects a timely response and may start sending multiple requests for authentication. And another time that this might be useful is if you have users that have an unreliable connection to the internet, and so you may want to set a cache for a user and say you want to make it 10 minutes so that if they get logged off in 10 minutes, then they can log back in without getting the MFA phone call.
Keep in mind that this cache does also have a 24-hour limit. You can set it up to 24 hours.
Thanks, Mike. Another thing that's really handy is this notification section. If you have fraud set up or account lockout or one-time bypass initiated, you can put administrator or other individuals' email addresses and it will send notification to them when this is happening. Also, we have the server status. We don't currently have any servers in here because we haven't installed MFA yet, but you'll be able to see any MFA servers you have installed and whether they're online or offline, and if they are the master or what we call a slave or a secondary server. One other thing that you can do in here is run reports. So you can run, if you're on per authentication, this can be pretty handy because you can run a report and you can do it on usernames or groups and what authentication type if you like, or just run a standard report, and this will tell you how many users and how many authentications have happened in the date range you specify. Also, it'll also tell you how many were authenticated versus the attempts and how many were denied. This can be useful if you think you may be having some network issues or connectivity issues. Additional reports you can run are summary, so it'll give you each user and how many authentication attempts they've had and success and denial. And user details is the most granular report we offer. It is each authentication per user per line. Now, the next thing we have here is the MFA server. This is where you go to actually download the server, and you simply download and save, or you can run, but I recommend saving because that way, if you ever have to uninstall and reinstall or anything of that nature, you have it locally.
Or if you want to install the server on additional servers, you can then transfer it from server to server instead of re-downloading.
Absolutely. And so then it's downloaded. So the next thing you need to do in order to run the MFA server and have it associated with your account, you would need to generate activation credentials.
Now, these credentials are one-time use credentials. The email will remain the same, however, the password will change each time. You only will be able to use this password on one server, and it will expire after 10 minutes.
Yes. And the final thing I'd like to show you here is the SDK. SDK is a set of APIs that we offer, and as you can see, we have Perl, Ruby, PHP, C#, VB, and Java. This way, if you want to develop your own application, you can use our APIs to contact the MFA backend. We'll be covering the SDKs in a lot more detail in future MVA courses. And that concludes our walkthrough of the Azure MFA Management Portal. Again, it's very useful if you want to be able to customize some things that happen on the back end versus actually configuring them in the MFA server. We'll be covering in the next module how to install and some of the features of the MFA server.